All right, so in the last video, I mentioned 3 criteria for weeding books out of your classroom library. 1 is books that perpetuate stereotypes. 2 is books that make difference seem like a bad thing, an abnormal and negative thing. And 3 was books that water down a story too much. So in this video, I want to talk about books that perpetuate stereotypes. Now, we are so accustomed to stereotypes, it can be really easy to miss them. Sometimes they're found in books that are celebrated as multicultural, which becomes an even more dangerous situation. One book that I see everywhere is this book, Same, Same, But Different. I see this on a lot of lists, and it's often recommended by teachers in the US as a wonderful example of how 2 cultures can be different but actually have a lot of similarities. And if you go in with that lens, that might be what you see. But if you look a little bit more slowly, more deeply, more thoughtfully, you might actually see something very different. You might see that in the US, kids have telescopes in their giant tree houses, while children in India sit underneath a tree in the dirt, not even grass, to draw pictures. You might see that while American cities have skyscrapers and cars on perpendicular streets, Indians ride dressed up elephants around town, and they pull ridiculously huge carts while riding on their painted camels. There are no streets or pavement there, just one giant free-for-all. You would probably also note in this book that while American homes have a mom and a dad and 2 small children, Indian homes squeeze every known relative, all 23 of them, under one roof. And in the backyard, instead of a beautiful treehouse, children are literally hanging in the trees with the monkeys. This is one reason why it's great to look for authors and illustrators who actually share the identity of those being represented in the book, what you might know as #own voices books. That's not to say that respectful and empowering books can't be written by cultural outsiders, but rather that they need to be considered with a critical thinking lens. All children should be able to read books at school where they see themselves reflected in books, or if the depictions they see are negative, stereotypical, or the objects of humor, they learn that they're not valued by their society. What stereotypes will you find in your books? Are boys depicted as feminine if they like to read or don't like sports? Do people with disabilities need to be helped by somebody able-bodied? Do families need a mom and a dad who are present at home? And do they need a suburban house with a yard? Are East Asian characters nerdy? And do Indigenous people speak an overly poetic language? Is Africa just one giant safari with one giant culture? This is just a small sample of the stereotypes that I commonly see in children's books. But when you start looking with a more critical eye, I think that you'll start to see more and more of the harmful messaging that may be hidden in your class library.